Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now today I'm going to do a quick review of the Neat Iota Explorer, which is the biggest of the Iota range. Obviously there's a little Iota, which is a little stand mount one, which is I've already done a review on. Ours is a red version, so that sort of size in red. There's also the yellow, blue, whatever. A bit more traditional with the Explorers. They have black, walnut, white, that sort of thing. I'll double check that in a minute and I'll add it underneath the finishes. And there's also the Iota Alpha, which is kind of looks the same as this, but is sort of a reduced version, which is sort of probably understanding about this one. I'll bring that up in a bit, actually, just show you the difference, because that's quite interesting. Because the Alpha is just extremely small. The Explorer is still a small speaker, actually. It's when you compare it to other things, because it's standing at about 74 centimetres, I think, something like that. So it's not a big speaker. On the face of it, you've just got a 170mm bass mid driver and quite a large AMT ribbon. I think AMT stands for air mass, either transducer or transformer. I can never remember which one it is, but it's quite a large ribbon treble unit. Quite often, speakers with ribbon drivers and standard coaxial drivers don't integrate very well, but Neat do seem to be particularly good at it, and it works really well. You get a very fast, clean, clear top end that's nice and sort of there, and sort of, you know, everything's there in front of you, but it's never shrill, never too much. Very refined in the treble, and it integrates really well with the main driver. The clever stuff with this that's going on is a bit like the Alpha. The Alpha has a driver on the bottom as well, and so I think with the Alpha it's basically a standard Iota on the top, but it's got a cabinet, a separated cabinet internally, which has a driver on the bottom. This is similar, except the bottom cabinet is isobaric. But all you can actually see is the driver at the bottom. That was a mistake. That's a crack on my knee as well. Inside there's another driver as well. So we've got a driver on the bottom and a driver above it. Now that I'll have to try and explain with one of my drawings, which after the success of the last effort with drawings, I thought I'd have another go. So I'm going to switch my camera so we can actually see myself again. Thank you. I've done a little drawing of a side view, sort of what's going on inside. So we've got, that's the front slope, driver at the bass mid driver at the top. There's the driver at the bottom and the spikes, and right above that, so we've got that's in a sealed cabinet, and this is in a sealed cabinet. This is my guess of what's inside. I'm not totally sure because I've never seen it sort of as a diagram, but this is what I'm guessing. So that driver drives into this cabinet, that driver drives into this cabinet. What it's kind of effectively doing is making this driver, I was going to say, but it gives the effect that this driver is driving into, in theory, an infinitely large cabinet. Because with a sealed box, the cabinet size almost dictates the sort of scale you get. And a big driver firing into a sealed box, it will compress the air quite a bit. So that creates distortions, because as it moves in, the air pressure increases and you get all sorts of strain. There's quite a lot of downsides from sealed box in that respect. They're very fast to respond, but because of that changing pressure, it's actually very difficult to get a proper clean response from them in some ways. I mean, people might put me straight on that, you know more about speakers than I do, but with isobaric, because you've got a driver behind and that's moving in the same, because they're both wired in to the same signal, they're both receiving the same signal, so they both move together. That driver is kidded into thinking it's into an infinite cabinet, because that driver, as that one moves back, this one moves with it, so the air pressure doesn't change. Now obviously the one at the back, the air pressure is changing that, and there will be distortions and there will be all the things you get in a sealed box, but that isn't the driver you're listening to, it's the driver at the front. So you get this, and I think I've read somewhere, I think using isobaric the use of isobaric means you can get the same sort of extension and bass performance out of a speaker that it's sort of equivalent to twice the size of cabinet. So that means you can get away with a smaller cabinet and still get that bass performance. And it does work really, really well. I mean, quite a lot of companies use it over the years. Lynn used it to great effect in the Saras and the isobarics, and later on, I can't remember what they were called now later, because I went out of Lynn, but it was, I think, the Accurates, and there's a few that they've done, but particularly the isobaric and particularly the Sara were really good. Neat have used it in a few different models. The big Momentums that they do use isobaric loading. Trying to think now. I know Eggleston Works use it, possibly PMC. I should write this down beforehand, but there's been a few companies over the years who've used it, and it is used quite a lot in the Pro side. Used quite a lot with Pro sub bass units and things like that. Yeah, very effective. It is very effective, but the downside is makes the speakers more difficult to drive. Cost, obviously, and weight. It's just completely take you by surprise at how heavy these are. So yeah, that's the isobaric side of it. Sound-wise, these are, like I say, very, very natural. The top end is really clean, really clear because of the ribbon. Vocal clarity and things like that, they're really, really natural sounding. Weirdly, even though they're isobaric, they don't have tremendous bass output, but they are intended to be used quite close into a wall. They sort of rely on that wall to give them a bit of bass reinforcement. But I think it's quite a good thing nowadays, because there's very few speakers that do that, and in a lot of situations, and only really the Explorer, in some rooms, there's only really the Explorers which would work, or the Alphas. I've had quite a few customers in that situation, and that's the only solution has been a pair of Explorers. So they're great in that respect. I mean, actually, I'd find if you drive them well enough with something, something quite big driving them, that you can start moving them away. They do start to perform better. They're not particularly inefficient. Quite often isobaric stuff is really inefficient. These are about 87, 88 dB, so that's not too crazy. It's sort of around about average, slightly below average. So yeah, it's good all-round speakers. Like I say, one of my favourites. I really like the Explorers. They're not cheap. I mean, they take you by surprise how much they are, but you're getting a lot of speaker for your money. And if you've got a particularly awkward room that you need something, like I say, it needs to be close proximity to a wall. These are ideal, and they really justify the price. They're not overpriced sound quality wise. It just takes you by surprise because they're not a big speaker. You expect, for that sort of price, you expect something much more substantial, but quite often much more substantial doesn't work in a room. So like I've got at home, I can't use big speakers at home. All sorts of problems with acoustics and things. So yeah, thoroughly recommended, I'd say, these. Matching wise, I've used them with exposure. There's a little bit of a sort of working together situation with exposure. If you ever see Neat at shows, they're usually using exposure amps, and they do work brilliantly together. The Neat have always worked well with Name. I actually use these with Riga. Some of the bigger Riga stuff drives them really well. The little Alphas are superb with like a Riga LX. I don't think what else. Probably the usual things like Hagel and Moon and things like that will work well with these because they've got the right sort of characteristic for them. But particularly well, like I say, particularly well with exposure. It just seems to gel really well. We've got a chap who's got the big exposure with these, which I haven't heard, but I can imagine that's fantastic. Yeah, the big monoblocks. So yeah, that's them. Okay, so hope you like the review of the Explorer. Like I said, personal favourite, really like. Probably my top few speakers that I really like. If you've got any questions about them, just give us a ring at the shop. Really, I'll just go through any sort of matching issues with amplifiers or whatever. Just give you a bit of guidance over the phone. This was intended to be the video where I was going to do the draw of the winners of the competition. Obviously, technology has bitten me back. People actually say that I'm a bit anti-technology, and it's not true. Really, I'm not actually like that at all. So because of that, I thought let's not just have a hat with drawing some names out of it. Let's use a bit of technology. Let's make it a bit more interesting and a bit more random as well, because it never seems quite so random when you're just picking things out. So I thought, yeah, let's make it more interesting. And it all went tragically wrong, which I'll tell you about when I actually do the video. So probably a few days. I just need to redo kind of what I did before, but actually do it without it all failing this time. So that's yeah, like I said, in a few days' time. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. Subscribers kind of climbing quite rapidly now. I still sort of don't understand. It seems to be quite popular. Get some really nice comments from people. Occasional strange one, but yeah. Apparently I say a lot, which is true. I'm not a confident person. I do say a lot. It's difficult when you're not scripting things to actually keep the flow going, I suppose. Really, that's probably what it is. Anyway, I'll leave it there. See you in a future video. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I obviously forgot to do the size comparison. There's the little Iota Alpha and Explorer, and just an LP just for comparison's sake, really. A bit of Country Joe and the Fish, which you were introduced to me a few years ago by a customer. Yeah, there you go. It's like I say, not big speakers, but really big scale. Yeah, sonically big scale. Not totally sure how they do it, but come and have a listen.